Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth and Wellness Report. I felt compelled today to do a bonus episode on due diligence in the real estate and construction industry. So I got my guy, Steve Molof, here today, and we're going to talk about due diligence within construction projects and then specifically real estate files and transactions, investments. Steve, I know you do such great work at True North Kitchen and Bath, and why don't we start with the construction side of things, because you know that construction is completely crazy. We try to make it a linear process, but it's never a linear experience. Due diligence to me is so important because it helps streamline the process and the experience for not only the team, but the customer, the client, or any other stakeholder that's involved on a project.
I mean, yeah, glad to be back on the show. It's awesome always to talk cool stuff with you. Due diligence is a big topic. It's a big umbrella. And the first piece we look at is make sure your culture is established. We've talked about this before. To build a business, you have to build it in such a way that your employees are protected, right? And so you got to find the right people. If I hire some people that maybe have a great resume but are complete assholes, that's not going to be good for their coworkers, their colleagues, because we judge everybody really on two things as far as personnel goes, beginning with personnel, attitude and effort. They're the only two things you can control. And we talk on it all the time that if you've got a great attitude but your effort is piss poor, that don't work. Yeah. If you've got a terrible attitude but your effort's off the charts, again, that doesn't work. And so we bring people in certain disciplinary methods are based upon those two things, attitude and effort. So we establish the culture. We recruit to that culture to find people that can have a high engine with their attitude and effort. Because if they've got both those things, we can train you things, right? Certain things you can't train, but we can train you the business. We can train you the SOPs, the operating procedures. We can train you how to calculate and measure, how to sell, how to install. We can train those things. We can't train what's between the ears as to what your spirit and soul are. So we recruit to that culture first and foremost, and then we inspect what we expect, right? We have daily check-ins with everybody, with all the department heads, because we've got a call center, we've got operations, we've got sales, we've got warehousing, we've got distribution, freight,
logistics,
teams, all of it. And we're trying to be at least corporate as we can, but there's certain systems you must have. Yeah.
Yeah. So systems and process kind of further define your due diligence platform or framework or foundation, but doing the due diligence to determine what system and what process makes the most sense is a bit of trial and error.
A lot of trial and error, at least for us.
Sure.
When we started in 2018, there was just 3 employees, myself, my wife, and my best friend, John, business partner. There was 3 of us. And we knew of certain systems, like we had a CRM we knew we wanted to use because we had colleagues who had used it and said great things. Okay, so that was cool, easy decision. Everything else we had to kind of figure out, right? So let's say, because we do a lot of bathrooms, right? We go and sell a bathroom, and then we go to install it. For the first few, we didn't do a certain amount of diligence after the sale, right? So to double check measurements, to double confirm the scope of work with the homeowner, because you want to make sure you're absolutely clear on what your expectations are.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big one, making sure expectations are clear on our part and on the client's part. It's a partnership. You pay for it. We do the work and we shake in the middle, and that's the partnership. So doing due diligence on the littlest things like measuring twice, really simple concept, but we honestly didn't do that for the first few projects. And so we learned some things. So we set some processes in place. We have now what's called a project preview. Yeah. So construction gets involved, project manager goes out, confirms the scope, confirms the feasibility. And this process applies to many things, especially in real estate as well. Yeah. Confirm the scope, confirm the feasibility, and then we go to spend money like on purchasing materials. Yeah. Right? And things like that, buying permits, applying for those types of things costs money. So we don't spend any money on a project until we absolutely clear on expectations and scope.
One thing I like about your guys' process is, well, there's so much, man, honestly, but when it comes to due diligence, the project preview that you have in your system is, I think, a really good nugget that I want to share with everybody, because you go through a sales process with the customer, and then once the job is sold, it gets teed up. And then, and you'll be able to have kind of learned a little bit about the deal, because
we just did one,
because we're doing deals together. There's this project preview, which confirms so many things that were identified throughout the sales process. You talk a little bit about the project preview in your business.
Yeah, I mean, we just did one. I mean, you just hired True North to do a bathroom for one of your clients, the Chulo family, which is an amazing family, amazing projects going on. Next up is that bathroom. After we've gone outside, now we're going inside, which is so cool. Mm-hmm. Just on its own topic, I'm super excited about that project. It's a very extensive project. I mean, we're moving walls and utilities and all sorts of service lines, drain lines, electrical. There's all these things involved. And during the sales process, we went out there a few times, took some measurements, showed them products, materials, styles, patterns, all those things. And they're like, yes, we like it. We threw pricing at it. And everybody said, yes, let's do it. Okay, great. The project preview happened not long after we signed paperwork. That was like a 3-hour meeting, confirming everything that we'd already done for weeks and months prior. Because this is where the rubber meets the road. You got to be absolutely certain. It's like surgery. You got to make sure you're cutting the right veins and arms and things. It's a big deal, right? Because you're dealing with people's homes. And I always say it, next to family, it's your biggest asset in most cases. And you are bringing strange men to swing hammers within their most beloved asset. Yeah. So the customer journey has to always be on the forefront, always be on the front burner. And to ensure that, you have to confirm scope and feasibility and expectations before anything can proceed. So measurements, confirming materials, confirming the outline of the project, confirming timeline, confirming some other administrative components to the project, and then confirming if any changes have come up along the way. Because I think there were, for that particular project, and I'm sure for several of the projects that you do, there are some changes between the sales confirmation to the project preview, right? Yeah, we know what's interesting too is, as a salesperson, as salespeople, we're all salespeople in some shape or form, no matter who you are. You're always trying to convince somebody something to get something you want, no matter what it is. Like for dinner, I have to convince my wife and son what we're having. That takes sales, right? You got to close that deal. Well, your son's learning about that too, probably, by the way. I want Thai food tonight. She wants pizza. Like, no, okay, here we go. Negotiation, right? Like you need those skills in life. It's true. But so often in sales, as salespeople, or anybody that's developing or growing a business in any way, we blow past confirming what the problem is. First, you have to find the problem, the real problem, the reason that you called, the reason the client called you, and confirm that as the problem. Oftentimes, we blow past what the problem is, and we present a solution that's not appropriate to what the real problem is. So if you need a bathroom for a certain reason, and I come in there and I see, okay, it's ugly, you definitely need a new bathroom. But they don't think it's ugly. They just want more space. And I spend the whole 3 hours talking to them about beautification. And they really want to know about how do we utilize the ergonomics in here. So I'm confirming a solution based upon the wrong problem. And so many times as humans, we do that. Yeah. We solve the wrong problem with the wrong solution. So I always tell my team, be curious. The more curious you are, the more fun you're going to have getting to the real problem. That's what we're working on this week with my son. I say, Liam, we're going to get better at one thing today. Yeah. It's going to be curiosity. And so this week we're working on curiosity. I love that. And so when I pick him up from school, I ask him, how did your curiosity experiment go? Yeah. We have a little chat about it on the drive home. That's cool. We try to do that every week. And so we're doing that with our sales team, with our project managers, with operations. Being more curious helps you get to the real root of the problem. So only then can you actually try to propose a solution. So as you go through the project preview process and you finalize all of these details, is there another layer of due diligence that's
baked into your system?
There is. No, obviously this is specific to what we do.
Right.
Sell a deal. Hopefully all the problems and solutions have been confirmed. Get to the preview. You're confirming that those solutions to those problems are accurate and feasible, doable. And then you obviously measure for size because it's construction. How many square feet of flooring do you need, et cetera. You got to make sure that's accurate. And then at that stage, it goes into our coordinators' hands. And our coordinators, they do a number of different things. They look at the contract. They look at the preview. They're two documents. They're two signed documents by both parties. They look for discrepancies. If the preview says we're doing black and the contract says we're doing white, they raise a flag.
Got it.
Explain. They will come back to us and say, I see that these documents don't match. What happened? And so we find, and that's again another process we did not do. And so we would end up ordering the wrong materials or the wrong color, whatever it might be, missing things. So we've given our project managers, basically, we call it God mode. They can rewrite the contract on the preview. They can change things up. They can do all those things, but we still have our coordinators in the office that are skimming those with a fine-tooth comb to find discrepancies.
That's awesome. So there's a bit of planned redundancy in that conveyor belt.
Yep.
So you get to the coordination phase of the system. Where's like the stamp approval? Okay, like get this off my desk.
Yeah, so the coordinators, I mean, they are given ultimate gatekeeper status.
Cool.
They hold the keys to any money going out. And so our due diligence is so strong on any money that leaves us.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a business, as any investment, if money goes out, you want it to come back with more, right?
Right.
That's the idea. Investing in homes, real estate businesses, construction, whatever it might be. So anytime money's being spent, we have over the years developed more processes and empowered our employees to suggest better ways of doing it as well. Like for instance, this last week, our contract writing software, we use Sales Pro by a company called Leap. And we noticed that certain colors of showers weren't built into the software because everything's digital, right? So we have digital contracts. It's kind of like filling up an Amazon shopping cart. You click your walls, you click your floor, you pick, select all these things. And the database was just inaccurate because we're always updating it. And so we found out during these updates that certain materials were getting deleted. So we're like, okay, we don't have Calcutta marble walls as an option anymore. So our sales team now starts selecting the wrong color and writing a note. And so he was finding that out. And so just yesterday we were on the phone with our developers for 3 hours solving that. So that's because we have all these checks and balances. You have to get filtered through 3 different people and processes before money leaves the door.
That verification process is why we're here talking about what we're talking about is due diligence. And I love how you guys have planned redundancy all the way through this process for your project delivery system.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you've learned, you've failed forward, which I'm hoping based on this conversation, our audience doesn't have to go through all of those issues because they can learn here on how to better streamline a due diligence package for your construction project, for your real estate, for your home improvement project, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, because the big thing here is we're trying to do this at scale. We're trying to scale a business. And if you scale before you've solved problems, you're going to be scaling problems. So, and that's going to happen. And that's okay. Yeah. But your systems rise at every level, and you can only fall to the level of your lowest system. So we're always trying to raise it. Yeah. Always trying to raise it. So that was the big piece because we want to be in business so our homeowners can feel comfortable.
I love that. It needs to be a joy. The experience needs to be joyful. And I think you and I can agree on this, that the construction industry's level of sophistication and bar within the home improvement space is, that bar is low, unfortunately.
It's short-sighted because everybody thinks there's big profits in construction. And if you have a truck and a ladder, all of a sudden you're a contractor now. Yeah. And there's always going to be someone like that can do it for less. There's always somebody. Yep. You find the lowest guy, there's more that are lower. Yep. But those guys aren't doing what we're doing, which is trying to scale solutions so that way we can be in business and be there for you when you need us.
That's great.
Right.
I love that. And that's actually a really good segue, talking due diligence within asset management for a construction company. There's planned redundancies, there's systems and process, there's a conveyor belt. You have teams. But what about on the other side of the contract, the homeowner, the customer, what are some things that they can do that could further define their due diligence when hiring a contractor or when they're embarking on a project? And let's say they're midway through, what sort of things would you recommend a client or a homeowner do that's, rooted in due diligence and verification?
That's a great question. And it depends on the type of consumer you are. In construction, for me, there's two types of buyers, of buying patterns. People that want to be unique, and they don't want a project like any other. They want something signature.
So custom.
Something custom that's never been done before or never been seen before. They're not looking for as much evidence that you're the best contractor. They're looking for your creativity, how creative you are. Most people that I've found, they want to feel safe with who they're going with, and they want third-party evidence, third-party proof. Who else has done it, and what have they said?
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of us are. They go on, Yelp and all these things.
Sure.
That's why it's so powerful that we protect our reputation.
Is that enough, though, for a homeowner to go just onto Yelp and see?
No.
Okay.
That's what helps get the phone to ring. That's just the beginning. That's the tip of the spear. Your reputation is what gets the phone to ring. Maybe they've heard of you. Maybe it's a referral. Maybe they saw an advertisement. Maybe, they saw some banner ad a million times. And they must be legit because I keep seeing them.
So if you were going to, let's say you weren't the president of True North Kitchen and Bath and you wanted to embark on a bathroom project, what would you do? What sort of due diligence would you do before embarking on that project?
Yeah, a couple of things. Me personally, this is what I would recommend. Talk to a client that's already been a partner with that firm you're looking to work with.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody who's done it.
Go there, maybe even scratch and sniff on the work.
Scratch and sniff on the work, see it, because everybody...
Talk to people that were there working.
Yeah, because there's so much non-truth being said when contractors try to sell things.
Buyers are liars, but sellers are worse.
So they definitely can be. And the reputation in the contracting space is just that we're all thieves. We're all liars.
Yeah.
We're all cheats.
It's back to that low bar again.
It's a low bar. And so we're trying to redefine that by building in humanity. So I would talk to a client and then I would build a connection. For me, it's about connection.
Yeah.
Some people are better at connecting. Some people are better at realizing a true connection. Being able to look in someone's eyes and feel something. And something that I train our callers to do when people first ring us on the phone is they need to be able to hear your smile. And you think about that, right?
That's cool.
You got to be able to hear your smile because I'm a very I don't know I'm an empath, right? I connect with people and going through what they're going through. I'm good at trying to put myself in their shoes, so I can see it from their perspective, and that's how I sell things. Is I get on their side of the table, right, and build an advocate in the room, and try and see if I can understand what the true problem is so then I can create a real solution. So going back to if I'm a homeowner or consumer of anything, but in particular construction related stuff, kitchens, baths, whatever, see the work, talk to someone who's done the work and build a connection. Because you can get 10 quotes, 10 bids, and you're going to have 10 very different experiences.
That is, I think, a big reason why people end up just taking the easy route when taking on a project, whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom or even an addition or ADU construction job. There's so many companies out there, and there's so many reviews. You can talk to so many people. You can get 10 different bids. And then by the end of that process, you're probably completely wiped out.
This would be one of my biggest recommendations if you're going looking into invest in your home with a contractor. Don't commoditize the industry. Don't commoditize the quote. These are real people. And how you feel is what you're going to get. And most people, they think they want the cheapest, right? You can have good, fast, or cheap, but you can only pick two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're good and fast, you ain't cheap. If you're good and cheap, you ain't fast.
Yeah.
And so people want all three. They want it to be good, fast, and cheap. And that's an expectation that is just founded in falsity.
Yeah.
You can't have all that. So define what you want, who you want to work with. What's your pain threshold for time? What's your pain threshold for money? And what we found is that we've been lucky and fortunate to be positioned very responsibly. If you get 10 quotes, we're always right in the middle. But our homeowners love us. You know what I mean? It's so cool because we love them. That's the piece, is it's a two-way street.
It's reciprocity.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
They're and like I like what you said. They're not customers. They're partners.
They're partners. We're partners.
Yeah.
It's a partnership. What are partnerships, right? It's people getting together to do something and agreeing that they're going to do it together.
Yeah.
That's what this is. You fund it, we build it. There's the partnership.
Yeah. There's due diligence on both ends of the contract. And then, there's the contract itself. And as the contractor, you're a professional agreement maker. You have to have really good contracts that protect you and protect the customer. And we're probably not going to go down that path on this show, but as a form of an agreement that's bound and written and signed and executed, contracts are huge. They have to be drafted and written in a way that clearly defines all of the California statutes, all of the legal jargon. You need a lawyer, you need an attorney.
Our contracts are intense,
and they need to be done at a high level.
Something that I think is important, because there's all the fine print. There's so much fine print in California.
Well, we're in the most litigious state in the union.
Yeah.
So having a really good, solid contract for a contractor is immense. It's everything in our state.
And if I'm a consumer, if I'm a client looking to work with me or our team, I want to make sure that we go through the contract. So if I'm recommending to you guys, whoever's watching, listening to this, that's interested in doing some remodeling work, just make sure you go slow at the time of signing the contract.
Yeah.
I would say go slow, read through it.
Yeah.
And because expectations are everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're easy to set. It's not hard, but they're the biggest driver of pain when they're not hit.
Yeah.
Expectations changing.
Yep.
That's when stress goes up.
That's such a great point. The contract experience and the contract agreement shouldn't be commoditized or rushed at all. And I think the tortoise wins the race on this one, because if you're doing a home improvement project and it's going to be for your home, let's say in this instance a forever home or somewhere you're going to lay your hat, you're going to raise your kids, you're going to be there for a good amount of time, it makes all the sense to do your due diligence and verify and employ the right teams to do the job, because that might take a little longer initially, but the outcomes that you're going to enjoy is going to be, for some people, many, many, many years.
I mean, we've built systems in place so that the due diligence on the consumer end can be done very quickly, right? That's the goal, is to make it as efficient and pain-free as possible. So we can meet with somebody and they can know that we're the right fit very quick. And we come to solutions, very efficiently.
Yeah.
And our systems that put those checks and balances is the software, because it forces our team to go through every detail.
Yeah.
They have to list out exactly what we're doing, exactly why we're doing it, exactly when we're doing it, and exactly how much it all costs.
And this is all done in your market, your area of residency. Can you imagine what it would be like to do a project like this outside of your market, outside of your state, outside of your country?
We have many sister companies, trade partners that do very similar scopes that we do, with very similar partnerships through the dealerships that we all share. It's the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
There's many states you don't need permits. There's many states you don't need to be licensed.
We just did a 200 amp electrical upgrade at my mom's house in Houston, and several contractors showed up. She got about 3 to 5 bids. All of them said that you don't need a permit. And I'm talking to my mom on the phone. I'm like, that's probably BS. Why don't you call, just to verify, this is part of our due diligence, call the city planning and building department, tell them a little bit about your project, and just verify, are we going to need a permit? Because Not everybody tells the truth, unfortunately, in the construction space. And even if they were telling the truth, as a homeowner, you have to do that due diligence. In my opinion, it's only better for you to be more educated, more equipped with knowledge and data going into anything, because there is a level of risk in everything that you do. But to minimize and mitigate that level of risk by just simply picking up the phone, calling, simply typing in on the browser, like Googling it or going to chat or something, and just getting that data and that information, it's knowledge.
Well, and I 100% agree. And if you are having a hard time verifying as a consumer who you're working with and finding the right details, doesn't necessarily mean that person's bad, but I'd recommend going with somebody that you feel comfortable with, because their bona fides are easy to find.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we work so hard on, is eliminating the friction in the process.
Exactly.
So you can look us up, True North Kitchen and Bath, and find a million different reviews between Good Housekeeping, Diamond Certified, Yelp, BBB. All these things are all there. We've got millions of testimonials.
Yeah.
Videos. All our consumers get my phone number and John's phone number.
Yeah, you guys were telling me that.
We're an 8-figure company, and you
amazing.
can reach the owner's cell phone. My phone, this phone that's in my pocket.
It's amazing.
Same phone my parents call me on.
Yeah.
So that's an effort of us to recognize what consumers want. Is they want to make sure that we're available to them. Because again, it's scary. They're spending their life savings on stuff, and they want to make sure they're not giving it to the wrong people. That's the whole point of this due diligence. But that's one of the big efforts we put in, is to be available to them so that they're never left behind. So many consumers are left behind because they got swindled.
Yeah, it's a problem. And I think, I know rather, if I were to find a company like yours or a company like Circlefoot or any other company that has that process or very clear set of guidelines and a conveyor belt that eliminates the friction and turns the project into a source of joy, it's like kind of a no-brainer for me. Like even if the company or the individual or whatever stakeholder or service provider that's on that project or file may not have all of the experience or like the tenure, but they have great reviews, there's camaraderie there, there's a bit of connection, and people have vouched that it's, a good thing, then I would be inclined to move forward, sign a contract, take on the project, partner, etc. And I've done a lot of that by scaling our real estate portfolio.
Yeah, I want to learn. I want to talk more about what you're doing,
which is a whole. I mean, it's a whole nother animal, but it's the same color animal, because it's the same type of mindset that you have to have when embarking on a project. Having a due diligence package and a system and a set of processes that identify best, like the critical path.
Yeah, well, being a real estate professional that you are, you deal with buyers and sellers. So it's kind of like a whole new axis. I mean, you're in 3D now. Contracting can be more like checkers. What you're doing can be more like chess, right? Because you got to look at all the angles. And you're good at that. Tell me about how when you're looking at a deal.
So it depends on what side of the table I'm sitting on, because I can, because there's real estate, there's the real estate fiduciary or the broker agent relationship that you have with a buyer and a seller, or there's the real estate investor hat.
Well, let's pick one and get specific and walk down that road.
And I'd rather talk today about the investor hat, because I've come across a lot of real estate investors out there who are just so excited to do a deal. Like, especially the
when you
investors,
say do a deal, that means like purchase something, invest in
purchase
something.
a piece of real estate. It's an investment property, whether it's commercial or residential. Maybe it's a residential investor that's been strictly residential that wants to move into the commercial space and buy a multifamily building or, a office building or something of that nature. Or it's a new investor that hasn't even been in the real estate space that wants to buy a piece of residential real estate and throw a tenant in there and have a rental property that generates rental income.
Well, let's talk about that, because I feel like, at least in my space where we live, where I'm at with colleagues that we have, That's a common one where people finally able to look at a residential investment as a rental, as some kind of cash flowing thing for them.
Yeah.
Everybody that I know wants to do that, whether they can or can't. Most people can't because it's just too much, right? To around here, a tiny little teardown is still $2 million. What is the fiduciary process you look at? Let's say you're looking at a 3-2 house, residential, single family in San Mateo, and I want to be the investor. Walk me through what I should be looking at.
Well, there's several things that you need to be looking at. You need to be looking at comparables in the local neighborhood, houses that have sold already within the recent I like to look at 3 months to present day, but depending on the fiduciary, the real estate broker agent, they might go back as far as 6 months. So understanding what assets have sold at what price points over the very near
to see if this one's
past.
Priced reasonably.
Correct. And then we would look at the building fitness. Like, what does the building say to us? What sort of systems are in this building that need to be repaired, upgraded, renovated, etc.? That way we can understand what the repair value will be once the work is done, because it may or may not be baked into the listing price or the purchase price for the home. So if I'm on the buyer side and I'm helping you, we're going to want to do our due diligence in finding out how much things cost in the local area, how much renovation work costs in the local area, and then kind of craft up an equation to determine what we feel like would be a good offer in that market, in that time, for that particular piece of real estate.
Yeah, because I want to maximize my investment. I want to spend as little as possible, and when I'm done with any renovations, have it be worth as much as possible.
Yeah.
If this is an investment.
Absolutely.
That's the idea.
Another really important component that we would have a conversation about is the regulatory climate, because
For renting?
for renting. Yeah, because if you're an investor and you're going to be putting a tenant into a single family residence, then there's some liability that's involved. We need to look at insurance and its costs. We need to determine several other factors that would play into the deal, like rent control. There's various laws, and it's very nuanced on the peninsula because there's so many municipalities, there's so many cities crammed into such a small area. So if you go up to San Francisco, rent control is very real, and there are some very strict guidelines that an investor has to follow, versus like San Mateo or Burlingame or San Carlos, which is probably about 25 to 30 minutes south of San Francisco.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on San Francisco and how the rentability there from an investor's stake. How do you make it attractive? Is it attractive to invest in real estate in like a home in San Francisco?
That's a really great question.
Like, who would want to do that?
I think it really depends on the investor and their cash position, because and their current portfolio, their age, where they are in their life. Because if you had, if you were cash flush and you were young and you needed to park your money into an asset that you can depreciate and can generate maybe some cash flow, you'd probably want to park it into a building in your local area that you could easily visit, that you could potentially manage yourself or have a small team manage for you. Yeah. For me, I probably wouldn't if I was a new investor because of the regulatory climate in San Francisco.
It's hard to get people. It's hard to raise rents. It's hard to get people out. Things like that.
It's a business.
Yeah,
you have to look at it like a business, and it needs to generate income, and you don't want it to be a negative cash flowing asset, because it's going to over time eat up your reserves and eat up any other capital that you may have that you'd like to expend to another asset.
I think that's a really great point, calling it a business, because that's what it is.
It absolutely is a business.
I think most people, I say most just from my own experience, people I know that have bought real estate as an investment, a single family home, they didn't go into it with, I'm creating a business. They went into it with, I'm doing something cool that's going to maybe make a little money.
There's so much hype online in social media, like, oh, real estate is just this romantic, like the fantasism, and like
Everybody wants to flip. I want to flip houses. I want to flip houses.
and they see all these influencers and they see all these people doing these things and they get horny for deals.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so much to it that you have to consider. And a big reason why I wanted to hop on here again is because there is this long list of items that you need to handle before the deal closes. Now,
I mean, you could teach a seminar on,
you could,
on that.
you could go down the rabbit hole within the market that you live in or out of the market that you don't live in, because that requires more due diligence. You may have bought some deals together and put them in our respective portfolios, and the amount of work that goes into those deals because they're out of state is extensive.
Well, this is why I'm growing through what I'm going through, right? And when it comes to real estate, I don't have the experience you have. That's what makes you such a great asset. If anybody's curious about getting into it, having someone like you is amazing.
Somebody's got to get into the jungle and bushwhack.
You are the king bushwhacker, man.
Before you start laying down, you know, a foundation. In my opinion, the major, there's at least five things that I've learned in real estate investing out of state. And it's all under this due diligence umbrella.
Yeah.
The first is finding a good property management company. Well, let me backtrack. The first is finding a good deal.
Right.
Like, you find a good deal, whether you're going direct to seller or you work with an agent or you work with a wholesale or wholesaler. Or if you find some magic sauce in some pocket somewhere where you're looking to deploy your money. And then once you find your deal, then you do your due diligence before the deal closes. So you find a good property management company, somebody who's going to be able to help you take care of the asset.
Someone you can trust that has a Rolodex of trustworthy people.
That once you close the deal will help you stabilize that asset and make sure that's going to generate income. So there's insurance, there's liability, there's shopping for the tenant, the proper tenant, their due diligence packages to verify that the person that you're bringing in or the family that you're bringing in is not only going to pay their rent on time, but they're not going to destroy your property. Mm-hmm. If it's an HOA, identify the HOA, identify who's in the HOA, look at all of the CC&Rs. So the covenants, conditions, and restrictions of that HOA. You have to be like well-versed in what you can and can't do with your real estate if it's in an HOA.
It's amazing how complicated and different HOAs can be.
Yeah.
Because we work with probably 20 to 30 different HOAs every month on different projects.
And they're all very different.
They're all very different.
Yep.
And we're dealing with one right now that we'll come to find out is going through a host of litigation with the community because of the mismanagement of the funds, the mismanagement of the restrictions.
Yeah.
And it's just gotten really, really messy. And
you do 50 deals and you're like, and every HOA is different. You need to hire somebody just to look at HOA CC&Rs.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And HOAs only meet once a month or once a quarter sometimes, and you don't know anything about them.
Yep. So HOAs is a huge layer in the due diligence package, making sure you're
keep
dotting
going
your
down
I's
your package,
and crossing your T's.
I just wanted to stop on that for 1 second.
That's a really great point, because if people are buying deals in HOAs, like, you need to know your HOA inside and out.
They are all snowflakes. Very unique.
And, like, kill them with kindness. If you find yourself in a good deal with like an HOA that doesn't really like to play ball with you, well, either don't do the deal or play ball in a way that's going to make sure your investment and your pocketbook or the money that you're playing with here is not going to go down the rabbit hole or down the tubes or in the trash can. So HOA due diligence is huge. Contractors. We were just talking about this.
Yep.
Finding good, reputable contractors. And typically, if you find a very good property management company, they should have a Rolodex of home improvement specialists that can come in and address every system or every component of your home.
Mm-hmm. Building a team is what you're saying.
Building a team. This little ecosystem of professionals that come in to help support you in your investment has to be done before the deal closes. So you got to go out there and rub elbows with people, pick up the phone, shop around before you do a deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. And I'm going to say that I am guilty of finding a deal that I want to do that makes a lot of sense, that is going to be a good investment without having any boots on the ground. So that means fire alarm, you hit the button, everybody's flying down the fire pole, and they're going to their battle stations, and you've got to find all of these players in a short amount of time. And a lot of the times, a real estate file or transaction, somewhere around 30 days to 45 days. Sometimes sooner, especially if it's like an off-pocket, or if it's an off-market listing or a pocket deal or a creative deal that's about to go into foreclosure. Time is of the essence. So the time frame compresses considerably, but the system and the process or the utility or the toolkit that you bring in to handle that stays the same.
Right.
So once that's laid out and you've got your foundation, then cool. Your time frame can get compressed. You can go into markets that you're not completely proficient in, the details and the minutia, the demographics, the type of people, the workmanship, or rather the workers and the workforce in that market.
Yeah.
But you've got your process and you've got your system. You know who to call, or at least the types of folks to call that come in and help you with your deal.
Yeah. When you're doing due diligence on a deal, you're looking at a deal as an investor, you're trying to get in. What are some common things that turn you off of an opportunity?
Be more specific.
If you're looking at it, okay, so it's all about the opportunity, right? Because as an investor, you're looking for things that are good opportunity. You don't want to buy just a run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter deal because it's just not as attractive. You want something tasty,
Sure,
something saucy, that goes like, ooh,
yeah,
this one's unique.
Yeah.
It's got X, Y, Z. It's in a great area, short sales, whatever it might be. Oh, this one's creative. It's going to be a subject to deal, and these rates are awesome. And then, what are some things that you're like, this looks awesome? Ooh.
Like red flags.
Red flags.
Oh gosh, contracts. Like if we're going to go down the creative finance path,
that's what we've done.
And we find, let's say we find a deal from a wholesaler, because this comes up a lot. We find a deal from a wholesaler and they've got a contract on a napkin. Don't do that deal.
Napkin deals, no.
And don't do any napkin deals. And a red flag. So contracts are everything, whether it's a creative finance deal or not. So reviewing the contract and making sure that it's either done on a proper state form or a contract that was drafted by a for real attorney, not ChatGPT. And so that would be one big red flag. It's just the agreements that are in place that...
What's an example of an agreement in place that doesn't look good?
Well, a purchase and sale agreement is where, buyer and seller get together and they sit down and they write out a contract that clearly defines that I'm going to sell you this and you're going to buy this from me. And so just like a home improvement contract, there's a lot of criteria in there. So if you don't know how to navigate a contract, find somebody who does.
That's something you do, right?
Absolutely.
How do people find you for your real estate consultation?
Well, they can find me here at the Wealth and Wellness Report on YouTube, Diego J. Torelio, or they can go onto my website, diegotorelio.com. That's TORRELIO. And we're always open to doing projects with investors. We're always open to partnering with investors. But going back to your comment, there's some other red flags there that would come up in a deal that, we need to be mindful of is building fitness is huge. So inspections.
If I'm a run of the mill, let's say I'm a tech guy here in the Bay Area. I have a 9-to-5. I make $250,000 a year. I don't know anything about construction. And I have a buddy who's a realtor. He's like, dude, I got this deal. You've got money. I've got a deal. That kind of thing. how do I look at an inspection? Who do I go to help me understand what that means?
Typically, inspection companies have put together reports that a 5-year-old could read.
Awesome.
Green is good, red is bad.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Got it.
So a lot of photos and a lot of rating systems are baked into their inspection reports so that a new homeowner, let's say who's buying their property, their primary residence, has a report that they can navigate easily.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had a question, they can always go back to the property inspection company, or they can review it with their real estate agent or broker, or whomever they're partnering with to help them do that deal. So inspections are everything. Now, if you are well-versed, like yourself in the built environment, and you're a contractor and you have a Rolodex of professionals, we'll bring them in.
Yeah.
Bring them in to help you understand what is going on in that building, how the electrical system looks like, what's the HVAC, is there any, what's the foundation look like, is there drainage issues? There's so many components to a home or a building that needs to be looked at with a fine-tooth comb, because if you go into that deal and you make that purchase without doing your due diligence in inspections, you're going to have a closet full of potential skeletons that can come out with their goblins and ghouls and destroy your deal. Mm-hmm. So finding reputable property inspection companies is the same. You do it in the same process that you would with the property management company, mm-hmm. with a contractor, with an insurance company. You do your due diligence in your shopping, and you verify by talking to people that have already worked with them.
I think that's important. We talked about it today in our sales meeting about leading with honesty and integrity whenever you're doing any deal.
Yeah.
And you have to touch the touchy stuff, right? And what I mean by that is when a seller is trying to sell you something and you want to spend money, you want to buy it, you got to hear the touchy stuff. Okay, it's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy. It's going to smell. We might discover stuff. Mm-hmm. It might cost more.
Yeah.
There's certain things that might happen that aren't expected. Going through those things is massively important. And that applies to real estate investing.
Absolutely.
You gotta find the dirt. Show me the dirt so I can know how to sweep it. What broom do I bring?
Exactly. Attention to detail is enormous, mm-hmm. because there's so many components within that transaction and the timeline of that transaction. Because if you get something on a contract, okay, then now your due diligence period begins, depending on the offer that was mm-hmm. crafted up for that file. Most of the time, inspections are 10 days, maybe less, maybe 15 days. So you have a compressed amount of time to get in there to make sure that the building is actually there.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing a deal that's out of state and you see pictures online, you go, gosh, this house looks great. And then you close the deal without doing an inspection, and then you get your teams out there and then there's no house, but just a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Then, you're going to be kicking yourself pretty hard.
What are some other things that you've seen in the disclosure process of a deal that you've had to navigate, like lien holders?
Great question. Yeah. So through a preliminary title report, you can identify what sort of skeletons are in that closet for that particular piece of real estate. And so every time there's a transaction on a piece of real estate, it's filed. It's put away in an archive. Mm-hmm. And then when you do a preliminary title report, it's called an abstract of title. You go into that title report and you look at the history. And you look at, all the things from job cards to permits that were pulled, to buyers and when they purchased, to sellers when they sold. And any other, maybe there was a lot line adjustment that was done, that would be recorded. Maybe there was a trustee sale and it conveyed out of an estate and into an individual. Like there's all of this record that's involved that's part of a title report that you'll want to look at very closely.
A lot of people aren't going to understand what they see when they open those abstracts.
And that's why they hire somebody like you, like a fiduciary or an advisor that can help them along that path.
Yeah.
because if you're new, it's just too much. You're gonna get hurt, unfortunately, or you're gonna take one in the shorts.
Yeah, you've got money. There's a deal. You throw money at it, and you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah,
without doing that due diligence.
It's
I think
true.
that's what's so cool about what you're doing is you're offering those services.
Yeah,
You're offering your services, your knowledge and know-how and experience, and you untangle the tangles.
To me, it's like it's always all of it's like a garden. And I always say like the best fertilizer is a gardener's shadow. And if you're there and you're tending and you're managing and you're part of it and you're present and you're participating in the process and you have good intentions, generally good things follow. And then you raise your hand. I need a team. I need a fiduciary. I need an advisor. I need something. And you find the people, and we talked about this when John was on the show, you find people who know what they're doing. Not because you want to exploit them or any of that. It's because you want to learn ultimately and become proficient and knowledgeable in the thing that you're embarking on, and to have them as a mentor. And you'll have to remind me. He said there are mentors and then there's sponsors. I think,
yes.
Right? I think that's a really cool
and you
approach.
can be both.
And you can be both, right?
Sponsor is someone who looks after you. A mentor is someone who helps raise you and guide you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's actually a really great point that I definitely want to make sure everybody is, that y'all are listening is, having a mentor, having a sponsor, having an advisor, having a partner, somebody there next to you to help you along this path, because it takes a community, it takes a group, and in every real estate transaction and every construction project, there's always a cohort of individuals. It's like this little thriving economy that comes to be, and then it gets done, and then everybody goes away.
It's so weird.
It's such a interesting experience, and to be a part of it. And that's a big reason why I absolutely love this stuff.
Yeah.
Is because of all of the professionals and the players and the experts that come into this orb collectively to work on a common goal, to get it across the finish line, and then it's like a disband, and then it comes back. Yeah. And if you keep working with people that,
and you've met some knuckleheads along the way, and you've learned that
100%,
that you're going to have that.
And I think that's just life, right? Like life, you're just going to go through, problems, and you're going to meet problem people, and it's how you respond. I think that makes a million percent, right? Like then you're failing forward, and you're learning, and you're growing, and you're more confident and equipped with more knowledge, and then you can help others, and
I mean, my theory
do the damn thing.
I mean, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, right? That's how I feel about who I want to be around. And something that's interesting, I think Bill Gates or somebody like that said this ago. If you want to find the most efficient solution to something, ask the laziest person. Right? They'll find that critical path that is the easiest to do. And we've learned some things through some of those people on our teams.
Yeah.
Like the lazy guy chimes in. He's like, why are we doing that? We don't need to do that.
Totally.
Like, what? Like, you're the lazy guy. What are you doing? Speaking of, oh, wait, that's a great idea.
Totally.
So always being open to better paths is one thing that we've learned. And I know you have too.
Be curious.
Be curious. That's
100%.
This week's theme, man, is
100%.
Be curious. And when you're spending money on an investment like this, it's massively important.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of money usually.
Totally.
Or it doesn't matter how much it is. It's a lot of money to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, no matter how big or small the deal is, it's still an investment, and it still needs to be looked at after, and you still need to take on risk, because there is no such thing as zero risk investing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as zero risk investing. And I think you can mitigate risk, and you can marginalize it by doing your due diligence. And I think that I'm hoping that people reach out on the show, either to myself directly or to Steve too, if you're hoping to get some help in developing your due diligence package for either your construction company or your real estate assets or your investments. Click on the link, subscribe. You can find me, Diego, at diegotorelio.com. Steve, where can they find you?
At True North Kitchen and Bath.
Love it.
Real simple. We're easy to find. That's, again, why we try to make it frictionless.
I love it. So if you guys have comments, please leave them below. Love to hear what you guys think, and we'll see you on the next one.